if tango's just walking, right? And if we just walk in a straight line musically, and without all the panache and pizzazz and boleos, whatever, and just keep it simple, I mean, it's not as to me, I'd have an easier time with that than, let's say,
No. So you're talking about just walking with a forward momentum and a backward momentum,
Yeah.
but that's not what the walk is. The walk is exchanging and displacing and internal rotation and all this stuff that you're just kind of skimming over by just saying you go straight and back. Hi, welcome. We are a left foot, right foot, and we are two LA dancers that dance Argentine tango specifically.
Click subscribe and join us as we explore the cultural dance of Argentine tango in both Los Angeles and the world. We're back with another episode of Left Foot, Right Foot. And do you think Argentine tango is all about passion, love, and Latin ladies? We're here to break down the biggest myths of Argentine tango. So tell me, Derek, what are some of the biggest myths that you think that are not true?
Well, I think when you think tango, you think the seductive guy with the rose in his mouth, and I think you hit a lot of stereotypes. I know when I first started tango, one of my close buddies, he was like, "Oh, you're going to tango class? Man, there's probably a bunch of like hot Latinas going there." And that in LA at least, that couldn't be further from the truth. Like not saying that there's like not any hot people. I would say that in terms of the population of dancers, I would say there's a lot more European and Asian American dancers, at least in LA, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like there are some. There's
some, but not when you think tango and you think there's gonna be just nothing but
South Americans.
Yeah. It's not.
No, it isn't. But to be fair, I think the other thing that I don't think people know about is that like Argentina has this reputation that they hold themselves like above everyone else in Latin America, that they're the Europeans of South America.
Okay.
So I could see how that, why that is. And also, tango didn't really become popular until it was exported to Europe and then it came back. So there's a huge mainstay in European culture. So yeah.
That's true. It's not, not that. I guess you just kind of hear these impressions and you kind of hear these myths about tango, and then as you get more experience and as you progress along, you find out more and more that these myths are just almost stereotypes, but mostly just myths that people made up that don't apply.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. What's another popular myth that you've busted on your way through tango?
Oh. I know why it's there, and I understand why people say it, but I think one of the biggest myths in tango is the chest-to-chest connection.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people actually start off teaching that way. I know some people even teach like the no arms and like just press forward with your chest.
Yeah.
Almost like you're in a football like tackling drill and you're trying to move the dummy.
Yeah.
Right, but with your chest. So, but yeah, as you progress, you realize that a lot of times the chest will lie, right? It's one of those things.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's good at first. I would say this. It's good at first because it takes you away from your arms. Because I think the main reason why teachers start off with this chest-to-chest connection idea is that so you don't move your partner around like a truck driver.
Yeah.
But
that was my biggest fear. I'd never wanted to be a truck driver, and so I always I almost went to the point where I needed to use more arms because I was using like so little. There was a point in time where just my embrace felt flimsy, and people were telling me like you need to like have more frame and more structure in my embrace because I was so scared to be the one to like
For me, I think the problem with my idea of the chest-to-chest connection is that generally I dance with people who are shorter. And then my shoulders start rounding, I start curling over, and I start dancing like this.
Yeah.
And then like my lead becomes nerve to the point where like they can't hear it because my chest collapses.
Because your axis is
yeah,
not center. It's like
yeah, and it's just practically just
forward. It's
and
just
and then
forward.
it's not comfortable for the lady because she's just getting overpowered like this by this giant tidal wave, and it's like ugh. So no,
Fortunately, I don't have that problem for me most of the time.
you're like I'm holding her up. You know?
But I do get it when I dance with someone really short and actually much shorter than me. I then understand, oh, that's why so many people do that thing.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to do it. I just, I'm privileged in that sense that I'm not put in that circumstance as much as other people.
Yeah. And as I get better, and I've heard this from a few teachers also, that you kind of do lead more like from your hips and below. Not necessarily lead with your legs, but like just like more from like the region of your hips. I started doing that more now, and it's interesting because like it makes it easier for me to hold my axis back instead of like because that's the other thing with the chest to chest connection is that I would generally dump my axis way too early, and they would
And
cut
just
the
fall
just
through the holes, I would say, like this kind of crack, like in the middle.
yeah, and you just cut the energy because
Yeah, you always have that little gap,
yeah.
missing piece.
So yeah, I think the chest. I mean, again, I understand why it came about and why people start talking about it, but I think as you learn more, it's something you need to like. You got to take the training wheels off, or you're just hamstringing yourself.
Yeah, and also I think that when people say the waist and below or like that part that gets stronger, I think once you establish more of your strength and standing leg and foundation, I think that's why, because especially in directions that go straight without the spiral, it really does generate from the bottom half more than anything, because that's what's attached to the ground, obviously.
Yeah.
And then when you're doing more of the spiral, of course you do generate from the ground, but it's and so yeah, it's less from the impulse from up top, right, and more down bottom base, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other myths you got?
I think the myth that, I think the one that has reigned true for me is, they say like, oh, you should go to, you should dance more, and the more milongas you go to, like the more advanced you'll get, and the more, I think to a certain level in the beginning, that's true. But I think after a while, if you don't do any of the things outside of the dance, like if you don't think about it, if you don't do your own kind of individual work or practice, I think just going to the milongas and improving will be such a slow climb. Where a lot of people say you gotta get out there. That's how you get your reps in, get better that way. And for me, it's just I think after a few years, I learned that that's not necessary. It helps, sure. Don't get me wrong. I think whenever you're dancing more, it's better than not dancing. But I do think that you have to have you. To me, I always advance by thinking when I'm not dancing. That's how I get better. Whenever I'm pulling concepts in while I'm walking down the streets, or just thinking, whenever I'm just thinking about it when I'm not on the dance floor, I feel like I advance more that way. At least for me.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, like I think I advanced just from drilling. I don't have the discipline to think about it every day. I need someone to tell me what to do, and somehow it will magically show up. I was like, oh, hey, I got better. But yeah, no, for me, it's definitely drilling, and it's drilling the same thing over and over again. It's
God.
That's just my method.
Yeah, that must.
Because like if I go out, to me it's like this. It's like going to the milonga and just dancing randomly and getting your reps in. To me, it's almost like going to the gym and not knowing if you're doing arms, chest. You don't have a focus. And it's just, oh, that machine's open. I'm going to go over there. Oh, that machine's open. I'm going to go over there. And so it's kind of all over the place. Yes, you do get better. Yes, you do get stronger. But if you decided to do supersets, do your chest day here, do your leg day there, I think you get a lot stronger. And in that sense, I feel
The only thing is, if you're doing it wrong with bad form, bad posture, you're actually doing yourself a disservice.
So I agree. It's the same thing with working out. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you can say the same thing. It's the same thing about dancing with randomness and just doing it doing it poorly. It's the same
Right, but I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's not from that. It's thinking from outside of that. Thinking of what a better solution would be. Thinking about, does this solution work, or what about this solution?
Okay. Well,
not drilling home like, teacher told me this solution, I'm gonna drill the solution C to death till I get it. Not necessarily, because you could be doing solution C, but not in the way that they really actually want you to do it. And so you're doing the thing 1,000 times wrong.
Okay, so how would you know something's right or wrong? I mean, like, generally, I think it's hard to know what's right or wrong until you do enough times to be able to feel it. And of course, you ask your teacher again through your privates, or you ask the question, and maybe there's a back and forth dialogue. But if you don't do it at all, and just, I'm not the person to go and just ponder and go, is it right or wrong? I need to do enough times to know it's wrong or if it's right, and then ask again. That's just my method. So it's not for everybody.
Okay.
Other things that I think, I'm gonna say this was a tough one, and it goes with seating and getting dances. I think a lot of times people think it's about. I know a lot of people put value on, like, let's say the corner seats, and because the corner is the entrance to the dance floor, or
yeah, location doesn't matter. If you sit off in the corner and on the side of the room, you're not gonna get dances.
I agree to a point.
Yeah.
And I think the point that I'm going to make is it depends on where popular people are. I think for me, I think the most popular dancers end up being like the center of the room. So like if they're in the center of the room, if they're like, let's say the gravity of the room, per se, I'm going to use a different word so people don't get confused with center. And like if the gravity of the room is in the corner, so like that's like the core of the earth, whatever, and you're sitting at the opposite corner from them, you're not going to get that many dances compared to like the corner of the corner that's closer to them. So just because you're at a corner doesn't mean, and if you're on the side that is closer to them, you might be getting more dances than being in the corner that's further away from them. So that's what I mean. It's not necessarily just the structure of the room. It's also about who's there and where they sit. So I think it's a moving target, because we've been to festivals where it's very obvious, where one side of the room is like where all like the cool kids are, and the other side of the room is kind of where all the rejects are, and it's if you sit on one side, you're not going to get any dances, even though you're at the corner. But you sit on the other side, you're getting all the dances you want. So I think it's a very fluid situation. You got to kind of be.
And there's many factors, right? Are you a generous person? Do people like you? Typically, are you outspoken, outgoing?
Yeah.
Do you introduce yourself to other people? I think there's a lot of factors you're missing here. It's not necessarily, if you're popular and outgoing and somebody sits on the other opposite side of the cool kids, they're still gonna get dances.
Yeah, true. But I'm just saying, people put so much. I think a lot of people put so much emphasis on location that like all the other factors are kind of out the door. Because I know people they'll pay for that corner table or whatever, and it's not like, oh well, is it really going to help you out? Like maybe you should spend that money on a taxi dancer instead, and that might get you out on the floor more, and then people will see you more.
That's true.
So.
Well, some people want to see a performance closer in a certain angle, or.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I'm just saying that generally that there's that myth of the corner tables are the hot spots, and you'll always get dances by sitting at the corner table.
I've never heard that. But.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've heard that from being an organizer, because they always there's people who always want the corner table, and they want it dedicated to them and whatnot.
Okay. Cool. I've been an organizer too, but I've never heard that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I don't think you took reservations.
I did take reservations.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Like running Yuli's event for a year and a half.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
She took reservations?
Yeah.
Okay.
They had reservations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna start with a spicy one, and that is Mule and Girl style. That's
It's a myth?
It's not really a myth, but I think it's like.
I think styles alone are myths, but just.
Yeah, but it's such a loaded word, because I really see. Well, going to your point, I think style style is a marketing term, you know.
Yeah, it's all marketing. Anyone that's danced tango for any kind of amount of years knows that it's all a marketing ploy.
Yeah.
Salon, Milangero, what else? Nuevo. These are all just marketing ploys.
Yeah, but I get like, but just because it's marketing, or just because, let's say the ideas are maybe not have been as accurate or true, it's become synonymous. Like, because everyone knows Milonguero style to be close embrace now, that it's almost like if you dance close embrace, everyone's like, oh, you're dancing Milonguero style. So it's almost like it created a life of its own. So there's this idea of what Milonguero style was, with the whole Susanna Miller idea of this is the way it's danced in Argentina, and all the Milongueros danced it that way. So therefore it's Milonguero style. And then, but you could look at videos of people of that era in the 40s, like Pupi Costello, who didn't dance in close embrace. So that myth has been shattered, but then it kind of came back and has a life of its own,
Well, I think there are some truths in the matter that these terms, it depends on the positioning, and so because of the positioning of things, it limits or expands the possibilities that you have as a dancer. So the reason why it's nuevo, right? So because you're so far open that it gives all these different possibilities. Salon a little bit closer, but still on your own axis, and then Milonguero kind of like touching and like
on top of each other, pretty much.
Yeah. So in this thing, it's restricted. You can't do a lot of things if you're connected in this fashion, right? Whereas here there's there's many more options because these are more independent.
Yeah.
And so you can say there is a term for it, but there is a certain possibilities that are opened or closed depending on what position you create in your embrace.
No, I agree. I just say, like, it started off a way. It might have been disproven, but then it comes back with a new life of its own, and now it's because people repeat it so much, it's become somewhat solidified. Kind of like the whole like alpha thing, where it was disproven that the alphas were not the front of the pack, and then it came back. That alpha has a new meaning that has a life of its own now. So that's what I mean. It's it might have been disproven that it kind of came back and now has a new meaning, and everyone just accepts it.
Okay. I think another myth for me is that I think that, and this is an interesting one, I think that using your hands actually in the dance is actually very important, right? I think a lot of people they kind of stress that it's all about the overall framework or using the ground, which is important, but I think the ability to use your hands is super underrated. I think not a lot of teachers talk about it. I think a lot of teachers are probably afraid to talk about it because there's so much that can go wrong, right? So most of these things have a little nuance to it, has a little subtlety to it. And so if you focus on it, I think some people might they feel like it's going to go overboard and they just overuse it. And so I think learning to dance with your tango is actually a very important skill when we're talking about this dance, tango, right?
All right. Here's another hot take. Ooh, and I'm probably gonna get some hate for saying this. I don't think tango is all that. I think we overcomplicate tango. So everyone always talks about tango being the hardest dance ever.
Oh, sure it is. And partner-wise dance, I think it is.
I think it is hard. Just like any dance is hard, but I wouldn't go as far as saying it's the hardest dance. Because I think a lot of times we put ourselves on this pedestal, like, it's our red badge of courage. Like, we're dancing the hardest dance. We're doing the most difficult thing. We're dancing the most connected dance. And, I've danced a few other dances, and, I think they're difficult in different ways.
Sure.
But I think tango can be very complex. But generally, like, if you don't overcomplicate it, it doesn't have to be that hard. And I think generally we overcomplicate it, and that's what makes it hard. You know, like if for example, if tango is just walking, right, and if we just walk in a straight line musically, and without all the panache and pizzazz and boleos, whatever, and just keep it simple. I mean, it's not as to me, I'd have an easier time with that than, let's say.
No. So you're talking about just walking with a forward momentum and a backward momentum, but that's not what the walk is. The walk is exchanging and displacing and internal rotation and all this stuff that you're just kind of skimming over by just saying you go straight and back. It's not that. I mean, if you were to think about how you distribute your weight and that you can slowly and you can use control to create dynamic in your walk or slow down your walk, then that's much different. Right? It's not just simply forward and back.
Well, yeah, I'm saying it's very nuanced. It's nuanced, but I mean, in terms of complex, like in terms of like being the most difficult thing ever.
I think it is, yeah, because you're walking straight in front of somebody and they're right in front of you, and you're walking through them.
Yes.
Yeah. What other dance does that?
Well, there are other things that do that, but not only to say a dance. But I do think having presence and moving people with your presence, like in terms of whether it be going through, like directly through them, or I mean, even open brace, you're not necessarily going through them. And there are other dances that kind of that have.
You're going through because they're standing in front of you, so you have to move through them.
Yeah, but I think that's more about like I don't think it's that. I think it's difficult. But I wouldn't go as far as saying it's the most difficult thing in terms of dancing.
In terms of partner dancing, what else is difficult? Unless you're talking about like acrobatics or, I don't know, you're just like doing some splits or things like that.
No,
or you're actually talking about physical, like things like that.
No, I'm talking like, well, sometimes I think for me one of the hardest things like maybe because I'm more accustomed to tango than other dances, but one of the hardest things for me is to consistently maintain, let's say, an 8 count or a 6 count all the time, because I'm so used to because with tango you could just pause and then.
Again, that's your tango bias, right? Because everything else does that. Every choreography has the 8 counts and they do the things all the time. This is natural with every other dance.
All right, but okay, but I also think that we put ourselves on a pedestal because, I mean, is it really that hard? I mean, there are a lot.
Considering that all the other dances you have to follow a strategic, specific counts or a thing like that, you're talking about the one dance that doesn't do that. Well, which one's going to be harder? All the other dances that have the same kind of count thing, or the one dance that doesn't?
Well, actually, I don't know. I have a harder time doing all the other stuff.
Well, yeah, that's because you're biased to tango again, like I said.
Yeah, but is it really bad?
You're going the other way. You started from this way, now you're trying to go the opposite way. Where everybody else does it from the other side, right?
Okay.
Learning the count and then going, what is this improvised thing?
All right, but I still think that, I mean, for me, I think that going through an object is difficult, and I think that's more of a psychological thing than a physical thing. I think tango is very, again, it's like, I think what makes tango difficult is how nuanced it is, but in terms of like complexity in, let's say, vocabulary, complexity of movement, I don't think it's all that. I mean, it's a hot take, but I don't think it's that complex.
Well, I mean, you just kind of contradicted yourself with with the nuance and the layers, and then you're just gonna say, I don't think it's complex. You just literally just contradicted yourself.
Okay, it's. I guess it's like this. It's. If I were to take it into a different realm, and let's say, I don't know, sports, for example. Let me think. What's a good comparison? So
you're pretty much saying kind of like, well, baseball's easy. You just get a bat and swing at it and hit the ball. That's it.
Well,
and then baseball is probably the hardest sports to be good at. Because the complexity of trying to swing that bat, and given how fast the ball is and how limited time you have to see it, depending on what the pitch is, depending on the angle and the velocity and all these things.
Okay.
It's the most difficult one, even though all you do is just swing the bat and try to hit this ball.
Okay. But I mean, maybe that's just something maybe that's something that we just disagree on. But for example, I think most of tango is, if you take the nuance out of it, it's really just, managing directions and pivots.
Yeah, swinging a bat and try to hit the ball. That's pretty much what you're saying.
Okay, but
If you take the nuance out of it, all you do is hit the bat, and just swing at it and hit the ball.
yeah, but
It's the hardest sport out of all. Any professional athlete will tell you. I mean, look at Michael Jordan. Couldn't make it in baseball. Greatest athlete in basketball.
yeah, but a lot of people couldn't make it in basketball either.
Yeah, but look at how many people in baseball are. And it's a very difficult sport.
No, I'm not
It's
saying
a very
it's not.
difficult thing to hit that ball.
Yeah, I mean,
you hit it 1 out of 3 times, you're good. That's good. Like, you're really good. That sport is hard.
I think I would probably. I mean, I'm not saying baseball's easy, but to say it's the most difficult sport, yeah, I'm not too sure about that.
What else is more difficult than baseball?
Golf.
No, because golf, again, like the parameters set, just nothing moving. You're just hitting it. There's some complexity too, but the person you have to see this pitch that's going 100-something miles per hour. Yeah, it's way more challenging than golf. But
Okay.
But yeah, interesting where we landed on this one. But let us know if we missed any common myths that you hear in your tango journey. We would like to know because, we've heard a lot ourselves. And through the years, we kind of realized that, there are some elements of truth to it, but for the most part, it is kind of a myth. But let us know what you think in the comments section. And thank you so much for watching our latest video, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Left Foot, Right Foot.
We appreciate your support, and make sure you click that subscribe button and that like button. It really helps with the algorithm, and also you receive all our latest updates. Thank you.